To get started. Welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, talk about it, analyze it, make jokes, have a good time. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
Hi, Chad. I'm alive and well. I'm getting through this thing.
Oh, still making it.
I don't mean the book. I just mean life in general.
It's tough sometimes. I mean, on the upside, my Cardinals are playing baseball again, so I have one thing to look forward to this summer, which is nice. But we are joined. So this season has been a weird 3-book season. Season 12 has. We did 3 books, all written in Spanish by female authors, translated by female translators, all that came out during pandemic times. And the last of those books is the Book of Anna by Carmen Boullosa, translated by Samantha Schnee. And Samantha was on last week, and this week we're proud to have Carmen Boullosa join us. How are you doing?
I'm very happy to be with you both. I have been listening to you talk about the book.
Oh, I'm very sorry for that.
I was terrified you were going to start talking about baseball. What the hell? They know how ignorant am I, and also how nasty I've been to the memory of my father, because when I was a little girl, my father took me to the baseball matches. And of course, I never knew who was playing against anybody. All I wanted was to be aside my father. It was wonderful. I love the area. I love the people. I love the renting the little cushion to sit down. I loved where we sat down. I loved his excitement. And I saw the ball, and everything seemed to be very romantic for me, but it didn't have names.
Oh, yeah.
Person back there. Oh,
it's my assistant.
Lucky you. You have a little person aside.
Yeah, it's kind of a running joke that I always bring up baseball, and none of our listeners care about it. 0% of our listenership is interested in hearing about my baseball and statistical obsessions. But last week when we recorded this, my team had COVID. They all had COVID, more than half of them. And so they hadn't played in 3 weeks, and now they are playing again, and they are recovering from COVID nicely. I guess I believe that it was according to allegations on Twitter, it was contracted because one of the players that was a pitcher did really poorly and worked off his anger by going to a salsa club. And then infected everyone. Cool.
It's super cool. I'm sorry, it's horrible. I know we are talking about something painful, but I find it absolutely fantastic. The story of, I have felt the desire to go to a salsa club, but they are all closed. That would kind of soothe my not having the city to walk on. The city is deprived from me. So a salsa club would have been great. And the favorite place, no, this is bad. Sorry about this.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was me.
No, it was me. The worst part is that my favorite place of dancing, the mythical Salon Los Angeles, is going into bankruptcy. Because they've been closed all this time, and they have been there for 50 years or something of the sort. And it's a place where you go see how people dance. And it's not only youth. I'm sorry, I'm an old person, and I prefer older people. So if you see there the real masters of dancing the traditional way, the real Mexican, Caribbean, the big orchestras, the big thing, and it's going into bankruptcy. So I am touched by the story of the salsa club poisoning. And I kind of like it, and I really feel like old loves of mine of my childhood are together. The dancing and the baseball.
I love it. So I have a question to start off here that relates to this, though, is how have you found, I don't know that I've talked to many writers during this quarantine, but have you found it easy to work on stuff? Or are you working on any projects right now? Or are you taking this time to do that? Or just no, there's too many things going on in the world, I can't write right now?
Well, it's not been, I always write, I'm an addict.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been, I think, my worst period.
Really?
I never realized how much I needed to be outside. I know that we, right, encapsulated, we are inside our chair, the world is happening, everything is happening outside, and one is in its own madness. But it's so deeply related, and it's been very strange. Another thing is that because of the COVID and the isolation, um, I was asked to give a seminar, so it was a lot of work to prepare something like this.
Yeah.
I'd never given courses of anything in Spanish, and it was my thing in Spanish because I've only taught in American universities, never here because I have no degree. Don't tell anybody, but I had no time because I was in a rush to live right, and I didn't care about papers, and it was that generation. So I did go to the university several lots of years, listened to wonderful courses, forgot the day of the exam, never picked up my notes. I never got the minimal degree. I did high school and that's it. And I have been teaching for many years in Georgetown, in NYU, in Columbia, in City College, now at Macaulay Honor. So here I can't. I have no credentials.
Really?
But they invited me. I guess that because the virtual thing gave me credentials. And it was very exciting and very difficult to talk with little black things in my screen. I sometimes couldn't remember where I was at because that magic of the classroom that you have people talking, and I took out like my favorite uh, cards, and I think it could have been wonderful, and maybe it wasn't bad, but it was so strange between excitement and frustration, and it took a lot of time. And then I gave a lecture because in the middle of all that, I had an idea of relating Artemisia Gentileschi with a 17th century author, and then of relating Emily Dickinson with Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, because they both decided auto-confinement was the best way of living for a writer.
Uh-huh.
I find pretty astonishing. And so I did like this, and all that was preparing, but it was not writing. It was preparing to talk. And that strange link, the paper, I have instead been doing my artist books and my things I do. I've been embroidering some pages for this and that, and I've been doing little things, and I've been cooking. Evidently, you'll see when I roll outside my house when finally the doors open. But not. It's not been a good season. I had a novel. I interrupted it. It kind of lost the steam. I couldn't. It didn't. It felt it lost its sex appeal. I divorced from her, my novel, and then I don't see myself. It's so, for me, it's been very, I hear some colleagues that have been writing, have been using the time. For me, the time has used me. I
Yeah.
have not used the time. I miss everything that is movement outside, even things I hate, like the waiting room in an airport. I can't believe I miss a waiting room in an airport. I miss like everything outside. I remember my worst enemies, or people that really don't like me, because I prefer to like everybody. And I think of them like, oh, I would love to see. I need the outside, though I am in reality very reclusive. I normally spend most of my days inside, but the forbidden collective world has hurt like in the middle of my phrases.
Yeah. I think it's kind of weird that there's no like new stimulation. Everything's just COVID stuff is all kind of the same over and over again, which is making it really hard to think about writing things or doing things that would be new thoughts or new creations.
It's strange. or I think everybody lives it differently.
Mhm.
I didn't go into the correct track. It's been a painful. I've slept terribly bad. I'm always a bad sleeper, but I have acquired a degree on the worst sleeper of the world. Ambient doesn't work, nothing works. So it's like I went into. I I think that the most difficult art of all is the art of living. I know it sounds very tacky. Excuse me. I am, or I might be very tacky, but it's really so difficult to live every day is in a way precious. And for me, the best way of living, it's like writing and reading and that. And now I went into the wrong track.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about the book of Anna. How did you? I kind of know this story. We've kind of hinted at it, but I want to hear from you, like how you came to write this book and what your interest was in doing a new version of Anna Karenina.
I a friend asked me if I would write for him something on a then new movie that was going to open with Anna Karenina, and I hadn't read it in 100 million years. Also, it was a favorite book of my stepmother, who was not my favorite person on earth. She was so evil with my smaller brothers and sisters. So I really had a very bad relationship with the book.
Wow.
I was War and Peace. I preferred, of course, as a teenager, I preferred Dostoevsky. Evidently, it happens. But I wanted like big books, things that happened outdoors with battles, with epics, adventures. I wanted that. So Anna Karenina was very low, and I told him, "Oh, well, let me see." So I opened the book and I loved it. I just, I loved it, and I got like, I would say, erotized by the writing, the imagination, and a kind of, I started like a fight with Tolstoy inside of me. So while reading the novel, reading parts of the correspondence, and something very intimate, and for me it was like a strange thing that I was liking it. It was like observing me doing something that I didn't imagine me ever doing.
Mhm.
And then I found her book. In the middle of the book, she said she had the book, and I had to adopt it. I also felt sympathy for her. I felt the dislike of Tolstoy for her. At the same time, his desire of her, even physical. It was like a paper erotica love story of Tolstoy with Anna Karenina, and me with the writing of the Anna Karenina, the book. It became very emotional. And I said, I'm going to write the book. And I kind of browsed how did I hope I don't know what would have happened if the book on how did Tolstoy wrote Anna Karenina that just appeared would have appeared, then maybe I would have plunged, but instead I started like browsing and making my idea, and I thought it had been capital the moment he met the daughter of Pushkin, who was like the father, a little bit dark.
Mhm.
They were the granddaughters of the El Negro del Zar, this African exceptionally brilliant boy that arrived, and the Tsar adopted, educated, take care of, gave him a noble title, made him rich, all that we know of that character, extraordinary character. Then we have Pushkin, whom I love. And then I decided I was going to write the book on verse, making an homage to Pushkin, an homage to that sparkle when Tolstoy, that had been trying to write the book and it didn't fit, and that version didn't, and he wasn't. When he saw this incredibly sexy, beautiful woman, he kind of used parts of her in my imagination. That was the story I was doing. And I did a first version, corrected it. Was very difficult to write the book in verse for young adults, I thought, and it was the story of the Negro del Tsar, the Tsar's negre, black. It's very more. It's translated into English, which is incorrect because he came from Black Africa. And I kind of told the story, but also like for children, so changing things, and I was very pleased with my version. 2 minutes and a half, not enough to put it in hands of a publisher. I have a guardian angel, and I again said, no, this doesn't work. This, and I wouldn't have ever done this. This is ridiculous. Why don't you really go into what she rewrote? Because she didn't want the book she had written. She wanted another one. So I went into this erotical crazy thing. I did one version, didn't work. I did another one. Then I said, I'm going to include several versions on it. And then I started like doing these Russian dolls for the Book of Anna. So it had to have this, it had to have this. And then suddenly I no longer ruled, as happens when one is writing a novel. The novel ruled, gave me the order. So it is, in fact, a little bit all of it a fairy tale, but has the revolution, had the atmosphere of some things that were happening in Mexico those days that were for me very necessary to write. So it took form with that, I would say, immense pleasure of when the book becomes alive and you are there only like an archaeologist, peeling and taking out the things that don't go and moving things around. And that's more or less the story. And then finding out things I didn't know, reading a biography about Father Capone, finding who was the chief of police, who happened to have the same name as the painter that Tolstoy, and then everything, it was like everything shaped between reality and between also that kind of particular speed that goes inside of a writer when he or she gets in touch with what he's writing. That's very strange because obviously one writes, but it's like it's written. So it's that thing that is so particular, and that was, may I say, very pleasurable. I had, as it happens in those moments, a lot of fun. Now I finished it and I said, I don't know if this works. It was totally different from my feeling of that thing that really didn't work that I had 2 minutes and a half. That sense of, oh, this is fantastic, I did it. I did it all in verse. I felt so proud. And this other one, I felt like, and I still look at it and say, why did it shape like that? I mean, of course, I cleaned, I did all I could, moved around, but it was like it ruled. I don't know if that makes it ruled, and it ruled very much the sense of that moment, the moment of where I placed the story, a sense I captured here in Mexico. I mean. And then also I had read between lines in Anna Karenina, in Tolstoy's, all these women looking for things that women are still looking and are worried about today, the right to decide if they want a child, the right to choose their lives of their own, the right to things that, yes, they were the big conquest of the 20th century in theory, but in reality, those conquests we really don't, etc., etc. So I had like that, but it was not like I'm going to talk about these things. It was like the novel wanted to talk as novels talk, that they have this thing, and as that ghost that's talking to Chad, that he's responding to his assistant or his ghost. That thing that is incredible. You are here. You are. It's like it's a good parallel. You have the screen in front, but you have that. It's something. It pulls you out, and that's what enriches and make it happen.
Do you still have the book in verse? Is it in a blue box somewhere, or did it blow up in a car fire?
You know, I think it's one of those that I have literally burnt.
Yeah.
I am not 100% sure, but I thought of doing it. I remember when I burnt another novel that, by the way, when I burnt it, I still loved it.
Oh.
But I burnt it because a very dear friend of mine had read it, and I adored him, and I still adore him. I still talk to him, though he's gone many years ago, Álvaro Mutis. And Álvaro told me, because Álvaro had read other manuscripts, he loved my Pirates book, he loves several of my work, and I thought he was going to love this one, that was the story of a saint, San Adrian, but told in a way that I thought was great. And he told me, burn it. And I told him, absolutely no way. And I wrote a long letter, like 4 pages, justifying why my book was so great. He received the letter at home. He took the phone. He called me and he said, Carmen, burn it. And it was like a week where I was saying, do I burn it? Do I burn it? I had to burn it. I burnt it.
Wow.
I had published a little fragment in a very, very marginal magazine. And once upon a time in a reading, I don't know where, a woman came to me and said, Carmen, did you ever publish that novel? It was so good. No, I said, I burnt it. How come you burnt it? We published she never even sent me a copy. I have no idea. I think Alvaro made me a gift. But I think this one I thought of burning it, and I don't remember if I dare, because I was in Brooklyn, and the house is very old, and maybe I didn't dare, but maybe I went to the garden, maybe I was drunk, maybe I buried it in the garden. I don't remember what happened to it. Most possibly, I threw it to the garbage.
Okay.
I don't have it in a computer. That I swear.
Yeah.
Wow. I want to be like you one day. I have a hard time letting go of my garbage. I hold on to it because I think at some point it's going to be good. And
I am sure it will, Brian.
No, but I admire your courage to move on.
What happened to your hair, Brian? You had more hair a week ago.
Oh, it's just wet.
It's wet. I imagine. Yeah. But I thought wet all this time.
I wanted to impress you, so I took a shower and put on a shirt.
Was it water, or did you have the shower in oil?
No.
No,
it's still really, 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 really long. Just when it's wet, it gets weight. But yeah, it's all still there.
Like your haircut.
It's a kind of hair also, partially. I think it's a kind of hair, because you have this kind of bit frizzy, or however you say that, pelo chino we say in Spanish, and it keeps more time the water.
Yeah, my daughter's hair it's like an otter pelt. You can dunk her in water and it'll be dry. Like it repels water.
Look, I had a shower like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's dry. I didn't use a dryer.
Huh.
Nice.
So,
well, one of the questions I like
to as you can see, a comb either.
We were reading one of the books that Open Letter published by Rodrigo Fresson, and in it the writer always gets upset when he's giving talks and people ask, where do your ideas come from? And he'd rather them ask why he's a writer in the first place. And so I was really intrigued when you said you're an addict to writing, but how did you get into writing? Why did you choose writing over over everything? Why the hell do you do this crazy profession where you might burn something or bury something that you work so hard on?
When I was a little girl, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I think that's why I always think of archaeology as the best thing that could ever happen. And I have dear friends that are archaeologists here in Mexico, and I love to go to see the things they are excavating and the whole shtick. I think in my case was my mother died. I was still like a kid, though I was going to be 15, but I had lived overprotected. And all the structure of the family and even the domestic life and everything went to hell. My father married exactly the year, the same day my mother had died, but a year later, with a woman that hated us, who was only 2 years older than my oldest sister, meaning she was 19 years old and we were 6 children. It was a disaster. Everything was difficult. And I decided I loved to read. My father read me stories in the night, read to us, the daughters, to put us asleep, not with the intention of reading anything for children, but because the things he wanted to read aloud. And his duty was to put the three oldest girls to sleep. But I didn't sleep. I heard everything he read. And I soon became my own reader. There are family photographs where everybody's playing or doing, and I am the one that's there reading a book. And I decided when everything became impossible, I mean impossible, daily life was impossible, everything was impossible. The city became different because we had had the same mayor during all my childhood. Uruchurto, he had been there like 18 years controlling the city, and suddenly we changed mayor. The mayor let the city understand it was a big thing because it had been like uh, the borders didn't enter in the areas we lived. They didn't accept bridges. There was no subway. The subway opened. The city appeared. Then suddenly the city was different. Everything was different. Not to speak of my body, that suddenly I was full of things as an adult woman that I hadn't had before. And I went tall, and everything was for me unknown, and no family life. And I decided, like a mad woman, because I've always been a mad woman, which is my forte, possibly my only one. I decided I was a writer. And I started writing small short stories by hand. I still write by hand, by the way. I wrote by hand, and I started doing like my little own books with little illustrations I did, that I still do these things that are my private appetite of doing these little things all the time, or bigger things, or whatever it is. Um, and I kept doing it, but it was I saved myself from who the hell knows what. In between, a sister of mine died in a car accident they were all driving drunk, and everything was difficult, very difficult. And I stuck into it, and it became like my marrow, like my bones, like the way I got a structure. And I did my life around that. And I think it was the why on earth, as I told you a little bit before, I have a guardian angel or something of the sort. I have no idea. There was nothing like a writer nearby our life. There were lots of books. My father was a wonderful reader, but also a terrible reader. He read Ayn Rand, and he read Cervantes, and he read all these like unscrupulous, but he knew, because for the little girls, he only read those classics. He didn't read the other books he even carried in his jacket. He was an avid reader.
Yeah.
And so I think it was my way out, and I continue doing it. I don't know. I feel terribly bad. I go a little bit nuts when I am not writing. Even this that I said that I've been like writing to talk gives me some structure. And if one day, or my things that I do, my kind of art, I don't know, they are my private thing, my artist's books, my things, or like this that you see here, the things I do, they have the center is writing, even if they are not writing, and that keeps me going. It not only keeps me going, it makes me happy. I love it. I listen to these writers that say, oh, how much they suffer, how much they suffer. No, 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 I don't suffer. My neck suffers. Yes, because so many hours sitting down. My back suffers. Yes, also my back suffers. Sometimes I get a little bit desperate. Yes, but nothing compared with the bitterness of real life. Writing is another space, is another thing. I mean, real life has wonderful things like having small children. I sometimes had them. And there are many things that are wonderful, but others that are pretty disgusting, not to talk of Trump because it makes us puke, and many other things that are. But in writing, there's something of, and also I prefer it. If you ask me, Emily Dickinson said that the only things she liked of domestic work were cooking and embroidering, and the rest of the housework for her was like the pestilence. And what she was talking about, it's pestilence times repeatedly. She loses people nearby. I agree. But not only with that, I think I consider pestilence a lot of things. Some are being reconsidered now with the coronavirus and me being locked. Like I already said, the waiting rooms in the airports.
Yeah.
They used to be considered by me pestilence. But now, no.
It's funny how that changes. It's very funny. There's a lot of things that I'm much more accepting of now. It's like, yeah, you get to see people again or feel some sense of normalcy. So one thing to just recap for anyone who's reading, I think I'm going to hit the high points here of the finale, part 5 that we're talking about today too, is that so Claudia finishes reading the Book of Anna. There's a second version that she doesn't read, but you refer to, which I think is interesting. There's a love letter to Vronsky that she does read, which I think we should talk about in relation to the window, which I think is very interesting. And then meanwhile, Claudia gives away they sell the painting to the Tsar, but give the box with the manuscripts as well, and a note saying like, don't let anyone read this until a certain point in time. Meanwhile, Clementine and Vladimir, right? That's the right name, right? Have decided that they're going to blow up the Tsar's Mercedes. They think that he's going to be in this Mercedes, Prince Orlov's Mercedes at one point in time. So they come up with this whole plan to have this like bomb inside of a pillow that they'll put on the back bumper and it'll explode and that will free the Russian people. And instead they essentially blow up Anna's portrait and the
manuscript. Yeah.
And themselves.
That's so mean. That's so mean. The manuscript, we kind of, but the painting, that is so mean. Really, the manuscript, they could have blown it. But the painting not, is unfair. I know I'm a reactionary. They are the revolutionaries. But it is unfair.
It's interesting because it's the thing that struck me when I hit the final page was that after all of this kind of recapturing of Anna's life and of like giving her some sort of interiority by having her write the Book of Anna or have the Book of Anna that's like existent in Tolstoy but not ever referred to, giving voice to her, upending things. At the end, like all of her is erased. Like the portrait's gone, the manuscripts are gone. You've eliminated her again in a different way, but like having left like traces throughout her daughter and Sergei and all the other like ways that she exists. But it's an interesting ending to hit like the suddenly like a ripcord's pulled and now Anna's gone again.
I have a theory, but I might be wrong. Well, I have two theories.
Your theory.
I might be wrong. Theory number 1. I said the book is like these Russian dolls. Well, maybe, but they are quite imperfect because they are not totally round. We see that the end of the Russian dolls, they become like more thinner. They are done like not by a professional, but by a Mexican person that does it only for fun. In a way, that those Russian dolls, they are not done like by an artisan that knows how to do them, but done by somebody different that tries to do the Russian dolls. That's version number one. Version number two, that might be a little bit less cruel with me, with my novel, is that as the center of the novel is this erotic tale. She is aroused when she rewrites these uh, popular stories that we have all read. Um, she's aroused and she makes all this, everything is erotical for her. And I think that the only possible ending for a novel that has in the center this erotical arousal and that has started with the beginning of a revolution has to be this precipitation. In a way, it's even confessed by the novel itself when Claudia says, but that's it, don't we have other ending? That's how the finale, even with that name, that is quite an innocent joke, is saying, oh, finale, one thinks it's going to be a finale. No, it's not a finale. This is the end of that erotical tale that ends like erotical sensations end. Has this thing that is a bit even compulsory and has this kind of different speed that is not the speed of the beginning, because it starts with, well, this is like this, like, and then comes into, it's an erotical rhythm also. I think that is why. Well, I don't know. Those are two theories, but I am nobody but the writer. And in reality, the ones that judge a book are the readers. Hello, person. There's a person down there. So that's what I would say. Also, I think that after all is like preparing us to read her privacy, the privacy of Anna. We have had it. And then in the finale, we have the letter. The letter she wrote that in reality we are seeing a bit, but we already saw her in action, what she really felt. She was totally aroused. She was in that, or I think that, or that was my what as a writer I think that central part contains. It's a sin, they would say, the nuns with whom I studied all my childhood and teenager years. Totally sinful. And then comes not the regret, because the author no longer goes to that school, not the regret, but the logical timing of the erotical tale. But you, the readers, know more. And you can say, why didn't she write a finale? And I would say, couldn't be a finale in that book. It had to be, yes, and it needed the word finale. You had to break the that we have in her book.
Yeah. And just really interesting. I'm gonna read the part of the letter because it's pretty steamy. It's pretty good stuff here. It's one of my favorite sections here. I'll read both paragraphs. It's a bit long, bear with me. The first time so this is Anna writing to Vronsky, who she's had the affair with, and the part in the book that you referred to at the very first line here of when she first has sex with him and they first commit adultery is amazing. That section of Anna Karenina is really something. But okay, the first time I got to know you in the biblical sense, I was pained and ashamed of myself, not just because I had committed adultery. I've always found the conjugal act unpleasant. I never wanted to with my son's father. I was simply fulfilling my duty to him. I closed my eyes and it was over soon enough, like most other bodily functions. It was like sweating beneath a heavy coat. But with you, I kept my eyes open. That first time, my desire lay dormant. But in the encounters that followed, I discovered with you, and thanks to you, something I did not know existed. Pleasure. The pleasure of two bodies in love. You opened a window inside of me that I didn't even know was there. I want to tell you about that window. Unlike the rest of this edifice, instead of opening to the outside, it opened onto myself. Without the window your touch made me aware of, which you taught me to access myself, that window that sees with touch, not with sight. Though you say sight gives you pleasure, I have experienced my greatest ecstasy with my eyes shut, especially at night when there's no one around, no light. I would never have known a whole continent within myself. It's not that I'm someone different. The difference is that now I know my own borders. I understand my own body, that my borders extend beyond my own skin, far beyond myself. Getting to know myself is like crossing vast territories and then it's broken off. It's great. I think that's a really amazing section. That's like my favorite part of this part 5. And it's interesting because it is going right into Anna's voice again, and within the context of the novel, not where like the Book of Anna, you could say like that's sort of separate. In this case, you are within the world of Tolstoy and of how she felt about Vronsky, and it all matches because there is like that sexual awakening within the novel and like the sort of freedom that comes with it, and the not dismissing that, but it gives her like empowerment and makes her a more full character. And I think that section is really interesting. So I'm just curious what you felt like writing that part, becoming Anna.
I gave her a voice. It was like kind of logical for me that she had to have written some letters to Vronsky, and not like the letters or the notes she wrote that closer to the end. But when she really loved him, because she did love him, and she did have moments that were wonderful with him.
Yeah.
And then everything went to hell. Maybe because that kind of relationship can't last, or maybe, and that's my theory, because Vronsky was a bad partner to play.
Yeah.
But he wasn't that bad partner, now that we are reading the letter. Or at least it wasn't that bad partner for a woman that was like kind of a virgin, according to what she says, which I think is unfair with Mr. Karenin.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Karenin, that doesn't play much here, but I remember him very well. I think he's a very interesting character in the novel of Tolstoy, and how he develops in the novel, and how dear he became for me. But I could not follow him, unluckily, because I had to follow Anna. But if I would have followed Karenin would sue me, because how do I dare say he never really made love with Anna?
Yeah.
It's unfair, he would say. And now, may I say, because I'm out of this book, I wrote it already, I finished the novel, I've been in another stories, I have another world now. The kind of novelist I am, I kind of, then the book is there, and then I go to another book, and then I need another literary environment, and I even want another, I would even say another style, it's always me, but another wording, another everything, another environment, another epoch, because I love to jump into different worlds. I need it because I'm a voracious adventuress that also loves a little bit domestic life. So to keep my table going and my happy life going, I have all my adventures there. If not, I would be assaulting banks, or who the hell knows what I would be doing, because I have this thing, planning plots, doing things. So in the second of my life, I consider that this letter of Anna Karenina is a lie. Anna, no doubt, wrote it. Anna, no doubt, she felt it. She trusted she was saying the truth. But I know, because now I'm in the side of Mr. Karenin, I know she's lying. We all lie a little bit in life because we need to lie to continue living with our present that many times is difficult to reconcile with the past. So I think, and I would argue, and it's a pity I don't have my book in Spanish here with me, and I'm not going to open it there, and I didn't print it in Spanish because I was not going to do that. But I think that in the wording, there's a little imposture, if that word exists in English, where I would know that maybe I, the writer, was a little bit conscient that she, in that minute, because she was so madly in love with Bronsky, was being unfair with beautiful Mr. Karenin, whom today I back up.
Interesting.
So today, let's say today, I think, but this is totally unfair. Please read the book. Maybe I'm the worst ambassador of my books. Read the book. The book has its beginning, its end, its own power. It's there. But now me, the author, wants to argue pro Mr. Karenin that Anna made a terrible mistake going with that guy because that guy is a little bit idiot. He doesn't really have a deep sense of anything. He really never deeply enamored of her or fell in love with her. For him, it was in his idea of masculinity. He has that for me. It's very obvious. He has this. She's a medal. That's why she stays with her because she's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And he conquers a decent woman that becomes adulterous, and he carries her. We don't see in Anna Karenina, the book of Tolstoy, if in fact he's about to dump her as Anna feels.
Right.
We don't know, but I think he had already dumped what she meant for him. He wanted another medal, maybe an economic medal, and he was going to marry a rich lady, maybe another kind of conqueror, because he has this thing. I hate when he appears in the movies. I saw all the movies about Karenina. I once gave a lecture on the film's interpretations of Karenina, may I say, because I got obsessed by Karenina sometime. Now I am obsessed in the second by Mr. Karenin. As I'm telling you, just in the second, I don't want to get there. I don't want to be there. But momentarily, I'm obsessed by him. But I don't like how they always portrayed him so, so incredibly more than beautiful, so as a thing of attraction for everybody and a radiance. No, he's not radiant to me. He's a mistake in Anna Karenina's life. She could have fallen in love with somebody more, or maybe it's because I adore intelligent men. That's why I love you two guys. You're two very, very intelligent. I'm not saying love in a way that your assistant or your wives or lovers or whatever you have in your lives are going to feel bad about me, but I feel I like men that are intelligent. I don't like idiots like Vronsky. We see him playing losing. When you play, intelligence also counts. He loses money and he uses bad the money too. And everything he's an idiot. How could she's intelligent. And I think Mr. Karenin, though not brilliant, but today that I defend him, sorry, it's not what this was about, but
it's really interesting.
But that's what I feel in this minute. You asked me about feel.
Yeah. It is
something that changes temperature.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is really complicated because Vronsky is shitty, and Kernan is like bad in his way where he's very controlling, as if like Vronsky's a catalyst to Anna becoming Anna and becoming like who she is as a woman. But yet, once she becomes that, these two men, their perspectives on the world don't allow her to be that. She has to be with one or the other, and they're both diametrically opposed and both like flawed inherently. I think that's why the book works so well. Like the part that always bothered me is when Mr. Karenin is like, oh, you can't do that because it's God's duty for you to be my wife. As my wife, it's God's like will that you are this way. And I was like, God, what an asshole. But you're right. Like later on, he is very kind to her, even though it's complicated. It's a very good book for like learning how to like construct characters that aren't wholly good, wholly bad, that your perspective on changes over time. I mean, it's really well done in that. I mean, no big surprise. Like Tolstoy was a good writer, but like it is like I think for young authors, it's probably like a really valuable book to read to get that sense that your characters don't have to be perfect, and that the complexity of them and the way that complexity is relayed over the course of the book is what makes them much more compelling than if they're like the cool, perfect ideal right from the start.
Yes, and I think another lesson that one can obtain from that book, many lessons can be obtained by it, is that the characters that acquire more depth are not the characters that the writer doesn't feel ambivalence to.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's very important to feel ambivalence to your characters. Because that's what he feels ambivalence. Tolstoy, evidently, sometimes one feels more rejection, but sometimes totally attracted to her. And I think that's a good relationship between a character and a writer. I wrote several books about pirates that were despicable people, and I felt very attracted to them too, though they were despicable. And also, I had this ambivalence to them, and that kind of energy, I think, gives the the writer more possibility of playing or giving, and even the language and the texture of the story. I think so. In the case of this book we are talking about today, I don't think it's so much about characters as about trying to capture atmospheres and maybe feelings is the word, and atmospheres and moments, historical moments, and collective and private moments, more than the characters, though the characters are introduced because we need them to enter that world.
Yeah.
But that's going back to.
That's really interesting.
We have a way to say this in Spanish, and I don't know how you say that in English. The persons that always speak about themselves, yo, me. No. I am not trying to do the yo. No. Nor my book. No. I don't want to be the yo. I want to just because it's what brings us here together.
Yeah.
If I'm to yo, please tell me. Don't be so much yo, please.
No, we're here to listen to you. This is fantastic. Getting to hear your perspective and your thoughts on your own work, and saying you're not the authority of it, which I love as well, because I think it's such a great attitude to take with a piece of work that you put into the world. It's no longer yours, and I really.
It's true, and as you know, as a writer, is that when you are writing, you are the authority. Mm-hmm. You are the authority, and there's a perverse pleasure in that, sometimes painful perverse pleasure. I remember when the mother in my novel called Before died, it was for me so almost impossible to correct the passage because I cried, and it was for me so painful to see that character die. I have killed others, as we have all killed others, and it feels painful. Sometimes feel painful. Some other times one says, what the hell, why did you destroy my painting? That can also happen. But that kind of authority, then you lose it. The book is the writer's. During many years, I only published the book, a novel, when I had finished another novel, because I knew my first novel, I published it when I had finished the second one. That gave me a cushion or a distance. And I did that, I think, till my 16th novel.
Wow.
Now something has happened to me that I go more like this. And now that I waited with the one I'm about to publish a couple of years because I didn't want to publish it without having another one, but I don't have it. And I didn't want it in my drawer, and I need the money. That's a little parenthesis. And I published it. I mean, it's about, thanks to coronavirus, it hasn't yet appeared, but it will appear the 8th of September. It's already arriving to the bookstores here, the few bookstores that are open in Mexico. I need to have at least 2 books with coronavirus. I mean, not them, the world.
Yeah.
So yes, but I think that distance is, you have to know it's not yours.
Okay. I think that's true. I think the thing that you said about the book being about like feelings and atmosphere is really key too, because there is like Sergei's feelings about being a character and like his like feeling of like being inauthentic, even if we don't want to take it as like a metafictional thing, but of this inauthenticity. And then that's contrasted with like that atmospheric moment and how like the revolution and like that uprising is not just like something that one person is behind, but it is taking over like a mass and a crowd, and it is atmospheric at its core. If you're having a revolution, that's kind of has to be part and parcel. And those two things do play off each other throughout the book, of like this sort of awareness of the self versus this sort of atmosphere of the whole movement of time and of politics and of society. And Anna Karenina, like as a novel, does stand really well in that space, because it is very much like she is very much like a prototypical feminist character within this confine that doesn't quite allow that. And tends to try and downplay it, like all the conversations about like whether women should be educated or not. Like that's like taken as a serious like topic. It sounds ridiculous nowadays, but at that time it makes sense. So it is going between that kind of atmosphere of change versus like the individual's feelings about themselves and about life, and her feelings about sex and romance and love are contrasted with like the atmosphere of the times that she's trapped in. So I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a really good through line to connect the two.
And I also think that maybe it is because what I really want to honor in the book, more than Anna Karenina, more than what she wrote, is the painting. And I think that in real good paintings, what you get is the atmosphere. And what you get is something that is the atmosphere, is the feeling, is more the language of a painting than the language of a narrative novel. Though the novel is all on little narrations, but I think it's more closer, or me as a writer, I had more on my mind that painting that I adored. So I wanted, and it impregnates the, let's say, the aesthetics, or without trying to be pretentious, aesthetics is always a word that feels like you are using a tutu, like a ballet dancer, like this. So I don't know how to say it, but it's more like a painting in that sense, though it's in words, but goes closer, wants to be closer to the atmosphere, the feeling, what a great painting gives us. And as I have this passion for paintings, art, visual art, I think it's also there.
It's interesting. Yeah, it is a very visual book, but also as like the way that it's constructed, like as you're saying, how the pieces are coming together is a very like visual sort of architecture or archaeology. You uncover the book, uncover the finale. Very interesting. I love it. Brian, do you have any final questions that you want to ask?
No, I got mine out of the way early just so I could sit back and listen.
Yeah.
But thank you, Carmen, for being so giving and honest and transparent with your answers. I really appreciate this. I learned a lot from you today. So
yeah, that was really fantastic. Do you have a favorite line you want to use, Brian?
Oh, give me a moment to track it down.
I'm going to just repeat the one that I read earlier, but it's my favorite one that I had marked. Is you opened a window inside me that I didn't even know was there.
That was beautiful.
That goes against my usual grain of finding the most nihilistic
thing,
the most nihilistic moment to read.
And I really did enjoy the juxtaposition of the dream space that she goes into after the encounter with the scent of the letter and what's inside the letter. I thought that was wonderful. Those scenes next to each other. It was really well done. And again, underrated, I think, is Carmen's humor throughout the book. So I'm going to read from page 172. The automobile will start moving again. The bomb will explode a few seconds later, and farewell, tyrant. We'll set Russia free. Anyone with a little common sense would realize it's an absurd idea. But with the cushion hiding a bomb in their minds and their plan to attach it to the automobile, the Tsar will be traveling in. Clementine and Vladimir set to work. How silly and foolish their grand plans are.
And it is perfect because it goes right back to the beginning. It's a very circular set of Matryoshka dolls in that sense, in that she sets up that bomb that doesn't work.
The bomb on the train, the bomb on the car. And,
yeah. Is it a ferry? I thought it was a ferry, but I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
But yeah.
May I say thanks to finish? Or I don't have a chance to say anything at the end.
You have anything you want to say?
Thank you too. I really have to thank you too. It's been so extremely generous of you to take all this time to talk about the book. And then to invite Samantha. The conversation with Samantha was wonderful too. Mm-hmm. And I was very much looking forward, though I was terrified with baseball, to have this. And the only thing I regret of this last session is that you are not in my table and we are sharing some food and some wine and some beers and talking. Is the only thing I regret. But I will be forever grateful to you too. This was an extraordinary gift for a writer. I am sure also Coffee House Press must be very happy. And one day, when we ever meet again, I'll tell you what I have a very deep relationship with Coffee House Press. My very first publisher studied with the founder of Coffee House Press on how to do letterpress books. And then I published my first book with Juan Pasco, as did Roberto Bolaño. And I have done the past one I published, that's a little poetry book, also with him. It's a relationship I have kept all the time with him. So to know that I am, let's say, in where he, it's pretty beautiful.
That's really amazing. That's fantastic. And yes, when things are settled down and you're back in New York, we'll all get together for drinks and discussion.
I hope so.
And for anyone who's still listening, I'm going to plug this later, but we did have a vote to see what the next book would be for season 13 of the 2-month review. And the runaway winner was Ader Otter by
Ana y Velardor is one of my favorite novels ever. And I wrote it in the best possible situation with Juan Garcia Ponce, who was an expert. And he told me, "You haven't read Ada Velardor?" And I said, "No, read it." And we commented it during some weeks. We talked about it. So I'm so happy.
So we're going to do this next. We're going to start after Labor Day, so people have time to get it, to purchase your own copy. And then the runner-up was Vernon Subutex by Virginie Despentes, which I finished all 3 volumes of while I was on vacation. And we will do all of those right afterwards. There's a bit of a timing issue related to when the 3rd volume will be available in America. That's making it a bit complicated, but we'll figure that out. But those are going to be the next 2 big seasons. So buy your Nabokov now. Get it. Let's read it. It's the one book that Rodrigo Frazan has not read from him, too. So he says that he's afraid to read it, that he thinks that something really bad will happen if he ever finishes it. So he's resisted. So we will break that for him. But anyways, thank you again for coming on. And thanks everyone for listening to this season and your continued support of the podcast and of everything we're doing. And I hope to talk to everyone again very soon.